So again, why won't any of these people talk to me? Here's why. Here's why. They can't handle the truth. And the truth is that talking to old half dollar would literally be so embarrassing to them, it would probably end their YouTube career.
There you have it, folks. That is the precipice for this interview. Indeed, the challenge has been put out there, and I decided, you know what? Why not? Why not take him up on his challenge? And so therefore, that is why we have this title, which some may call clickbait, to quote a term there. But yes, indeed. In fact, somebody already said, I'm out of here. It's clickbait. We're gone. I don't do clickbait, folks, here. Yes, you have to have some titles that do, get viewers in, but you have to have the content to back it up. And that's what I try to pride myself on doing. But anyway, so I don't do clickbait. So hopefully Max will come back, but I doubt he will. But nonetheless, here we go. We are going to be interviewing Not a Gold Bug. Now, people will say, well, why are you going to be interviewing this person? In fact, I've gotten some feedback from people who were, yes, I'm glad you're having somebody on that is challenging the norm of the stacking community and the influencers and the like out there. And so I'm brave for doing it. On the other hand, some people say, you shouldn't give somebody like this the time of day. But, I typically don't, for trolls, actual trolls that come in and type, at any point, if they're rude, I just delete them anymore. I like to have a free speech zone here if you have legitimate criticism. But a lot of times it got reversed to name calling and the like. But this person, what makes him different is that he has put his face and name out there. And not only that, but Paul has actually been in the precious metal space, and we're going to get his story here in a moment. But he has been in the space, and I've watched enough of his videos now after being informed about him from my friend Silver Wolverine. I had no idea who he was until Silver Wolverine pointed out a comment or one of his videos where he criticized me. In fact, in this video, you will see that I am one of the channels as to do not watch this channel. So let's see here. Where is it here? Let's see. It was on here earlier. It may not be here. But anyways, there's a list of channels not to watch, and I was on it. And I think he may have, I don't know if he changed it. But anyways, I was on that list. So there's a bunch of channels. But anyways, nonetheless, but he has got some interesting thoughts. And I think it's good to get some feedback from other folks in the community, even if they're challenging us. But I'm going to challenge him. He's going to challenge me. So let's bring him on here. I need to figure this out. This is only the second time I've done this as far as getting a link here for this platform. So if you're there, Paul, I'm going to send you the link to join us here. So let's see here. So there that is. So now I've just sent that to him via email. We'll have him on here, and then we'll get his backstory. We'll see what Paul is about, and Not a Gold Bug, and how he came up with that name, and half dollar too. So let's see here. Hopefully he'll pop in here very, very soon. And and I actually did send out an invitation to him as well too. Let's show you that. Where I did that. Let's see. Here's the invitation that I sent out to him here. You can see that. So yes, indeed. So, and again, and there's another criticism that I get as well too. Well, why have him on when you can help promote others that are positive in the community? Well, I do that. That's a lot of what I do in this platform, on this channel. I'm all about building up members of the community and trying to be as realistic as possible on the precious metal space. I believe gold and silver sell themselves, but I do believe in helping to promote the community and other channels out there too, and even some channels who may be hostile towards me and other members of the community. We're trying to get an idea where they're coming from, and that's kind of what this is about. So we want to hear him out and see what he's got to say, but hopefully he's got the email. If not, we're waiting for him to come on. He wanted to do this live, and so that's for the platform we've got here. So hopefully he's got the link and will join us here. This is half dollar. He goes by 3 names. He goes by half dollar. Let me see. Maybe I need to let me see here. I'm trying to think here. It should just, I'm looking in the chat. Are you here? He was in here earlier in the chat. Is half dollar here? Let me see here. Okay, there. I see you. Okay, here we go. All right, okay, sorry, there we go. Let me see. There you go. Sorry about that. Was my fault. Okay, there we go. Hello, sir. How are you doing?
Hey, how's it going, Sal? Good to meet you for the first time.
Yes, good to meet you too. Sorry about that. I had to click one other button to get you here. So you were on the ball. I was not. My apologies.
It's all good. It's all good. Can you hear me okay and see me
Yes,
okay
I
and
can
everything?
hear you. And can everybody else hear him okay? We'll just get confirmation here because this is live and unscripted. So we just want to make sure that we can hear you loud and clear. All right. Let me see. We're waiting for confirmation from can you guys hear Not a Gold Bug? Half dollar. Let's see here. Hopefully, yay. Okay, well, yes. Okay, and Nan Double X says yes. And we'll want that to go. So there's like a 20, 30-second delay here. So very good. Well, before we get into some of the criticisms, let's talk a little bit, because one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on is you have a unique background and a legitimate background in the precious metal space. So talk a little bit about two things. Number one, your writing, and number two, your experience with a major bullion dealer.
That's right. Well, thanks, Sal. I appreciate it. Because a lot of people actually don't know me, even though I know a lot of people in the gold and silver space. Now, I did work for one of the major online bullion dealers, but that's not really the main focus of what I want to talk about right now, because what I am actually known for anybody who does know me, is when I was managing editor of Silver Doctors. Now, you've been on YouTube for a long time, Sal, and I know you're familiar with that infamous prop or not list from 2016. So Silver Doctors was actually a website that was on that prop or not list. And
explain that to folks, as I'm not sure exactly. I may have seen that back then, but it's been a long time. Can you explain what that is?
Well, that was one of those infamous. It was published in the Washington Post in late 2016, early 2017, and it listed like 200 websites that were considered Russian propaganda. So, like InfoWars was on there, Zero Hedge was on there. There were a whole laundry list of websites that were on this website. And I don't know exactly where the backing and who was behind this website, but it featured Silver Doctors. Silver Doctors was on that list, and I became managing editor of Silver Doctors in the summer of 2017. So from the summer of 2017 until the very end of 2022, I was managing editor of Silver Doctors, very famous, infamous, whatever you want to call it, online gold, silver, and financial news website. And the plug was put on that website in the end of 2022, and effectively I have been canceled by the gold and silver community. So people think that I'm a newcomer, that I'm up and comer, but I'm really not. And I just want to mention a few really quick things, if I can, just about how we got here from 2017, if I can, Sal.
Go ahead, sure.
Okay, so I became manager. So this is just how I got canceled. So if you don't know who Old Half Dollar is, here's the 30-second nitty gritty to it. So I became managing editor of Silver Doctors in 2017. And early on, that was around Bitcoin's rise, 2017, 2018. And I was outspoken against Bitcoin from the beginning. Now, people who are new to gold and silver, especially from the Wall Street silver thing, which I have an issue with too, you had to make a choice in the gold and silver space, especially the subscription website pushers, the newsletter writers, all of these people. They couldn't say anything bad about Bitcoin, but I've always just spoken my mind. So I've been outspoken about Bitcoin and cryptocurrency and why it is not money. And people kind of distanced themselves from me for that. Then I was outspoken against the gold and silver mining industry. I got a lot of problems with the gold and silver mining industry. People distance themselves a little bit from that because there's a lot of these mining CEOs and stuff that go on these experts and influencers websites that want to listen to, we're this stock's going to the moon. No, you think you can get rich in gold and silver? Well, you really got to lever it up with the mining shares. So I was outspoken against that. I am outspoken against gold and silver manipulation, systemic manipulation. People distance themselves from me from that. I've been outspoken about the fact that it's not trading in the financial markets, it's gambling in the rigged casino. People want to distance themselves from me from that. I've been outspoken about technical analysis. I say that technical analysis is tarot card reading, but worse. I have been outspoken about Wall Street silver. I was tracking Wall Street silver from day one, and I called it out on day one, and I've been correct about that. In February, March 2021, I came up with my silver in the teens call, which I hit. People distanced themselves from me for that. So it's like the saying about going bankruptcy. It happens slowly and then all at once. Well, that's what happens when you get canceled. So all these names that I drop on my channel, I know these people, and I know, well, not all of them, right? Like I don't know Peter Schiff, for example, but I know how this game works. I know how this YouTube sphere works when it comes to the gold and silver space. So that's kind of who I am. That's kind of what my mission is, because once silver doctors pulled the plug and everybody distanced themselves from me, then nobody would talk to me about it. Nobody would talk to me about gold and silver because of my points of view on gold and silver itself. So that's just a really quick nitty gritty just to get it started about who I am. People think I'm a troll. I'm not a troll. I'm a silver stacker. I'm a silver bug. And I'm actually would like to consider myself a gold and silver advocate. And one of the big problems that I have, which is why I'm calling out a lot of these YouTube channels, is that advocacy involves challenging discussion, and it welcomes discussion. That's what gold and silver advocacy is. So I talk about things because people on YouTube are public. They're public figures. All these YouTube channels call out public figures. And I want to say that, you know, if you're on YouTube and if you're talking about gold and silver, you're a public figure. You're fair game for being called out yourself. And that's kind of what I'm doing here, Sal.
Well, thank you. And you know, that's one thing I always encourage is discussion and challenging the mainstream. And you know, there is a mainstream in the precious metals community too that I challenge. If you're familiar with my channel, I've challenged a lot of the consensus on a lot of different issues, but I welcome different points of view, but also agree with a lot of it as well too. My feeling is let's have a discussion of ideas rather than attacking channels. But at the same time, you know, I certainly can understand being you know, especially if you felt like you've been canceled, it's a tough issue. And you know, especially if you have accounts and you're just presenting your point of view. I'll tell you an example, and I'm not going to mention any names either, but there was a real big silver pumper that made a false claim about a U.S. Mint product, and I just politely corrected him. And on his one of his videos, it was a premiere, and I summarily got banned. And then he emailed me and basically threatened me, you know, physically threatened me. And I was just like, wow, you take this stuff way too personally, you know. And it's just like, I don't know, it's crazy. But I think a lot of times we take ourselves too seriously. I don't take myself too seriously, and that's one reason why, you know, this title is kind of tongue in cheek or whatever, because, you know, I always say I don't have an official disclaimer on any of my videos, but I think if people watch me enough, they know that, you know, that anything that I say could be wrong. In fact, a lot of it has been wrong. I might be right a time or two, but it's all just educated guesses. And I do like to feel that I'm somewhat educated in the markets. I know you are. But at the same time, you know, nobody will ever get it all right. But at the same time, I think the only thing that we can do is just try to be honest whenever we talk about gold and silver as best we can, because you're right, we are influencers, and my channel is not nearly as big as some of the other channels you've mentioned that you have criticism of. But at the same time, I do feel like I do provide a nuanced discussion on certain topics, and I think that's healthy. And I welcome challenging comments and discussion. That's one reason why I wanted to have you on too, because of your background and because of watching some of your commentary. You know, it was interesting and it makes you think. I think it's good to be challenged. I'll say that.
I would say, Sal, that I'm not attacking per se. I'm not attacking. I'm trying to call out things that I see as misleading, and especially misleading people who are trying to learn about gold and silver. So I know a lot of these people. I've spoken with a lot of these people. I've done interviews with a lot of these people that I talk about, and they refuse to talk to me about these things. Right when the time when Silver Doctors shut down, I was in talks with Chris Marcus from Arcadia Economics to get on his channel and to talk about some things. And after it shut down, I started going back and forth with Chris, and he decided not to have me on. And I personally helped him grow his channel, right? I would stick it up at the top and I would get him views. I would get him clicks. I have helped a lot of these people grow and become who they are. And now they have just completely turned their back on me. So I'm starting from the ground up in the sense that I've got a couple hundred people and subscribe to the channel and I'm shouting in the wind, but that's okay. That's okay, because the problem is that there are certain approaches that people will take when it comes to gold and silver that just are flat out wrong and misleading people. And what I'm trying to do is help people actually learn about gold and silver here, Sal. So can I just give like one quick example, for example?
Sure. Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay. For example, everybody's favorite silver advocate in the mining space is Keith Neumeyer. Now, I have actually had an interview with Keith Neumeyer, and it was a horrible experience. I want to say a few things about that. I do not think that Keith Neumeyer is a silver advocate. I think that his interviews are heavily scripted, and I know because I had to go through that when I interviewed him, going back and forth. No, you can't ask him this. No, you can't ask him that. No, you can't touch this topic. He blames the manipulation, but he doesn't blame the systemic manipulation. He blames rogue spoofers, right? And then what's this whole thing about First Majestic Silver was going to hold silver off the market to try and end the manipulation? What did that turn into? Whatever happened to that? Nothing ever happened to that. Now they created a refinery, and now they're just going to refine silver and sell it to the public, right? So it's like, if you can't beat them, we'll join them. So what about share buybacks, right? Everybody will agree that share buybacks are vile when it comes to mega corporations, but First Majestic's been doing share buybacks for years, and nobody's got a problem with that in the gold and silver space. So there's a lot of stuff that is just omitted and left out when it comes to the gold and silver space that I'm trying to expose here. So that's what I'm trying to do on this channel. I'm trying to teach people about gold and silver, the markets, and the economy. That's what I focus on. And because of my unique perspectives and because of the fact that I know a lot of people in the space who have turned their back on me, this is why I'm saying these things, because these things are not helpful to people in the grand scheme of things.
Right. Well, actually, I got to say, just full disclosure, I interviewed Keith Neumeyer as well, and I didn't have a list of questions that I couldn't ask. I didn't know about the shared, about the one situation, but I certainly probably would have challenged him on some things if I could. And I did. There were some things he disagreed with me on, but it was a polite conversation. Anyways, but yeah, and again, I understand if you had a bad experience, and it can be tough, but there is a lot of stuff that happens with every kind of market, whether it be precious metals, Bitcoin, or any stocks or bonds. There's always pumpers, there's always dumpers, there's always this, and the best thing we can do is just try to do the best we can to provide the most honest information that we can get out there. Because I believe gold and silver sell themselves. I've never been one of those. I think, and I don't know how familiar you are with my channel, but those who've been watching me for a long time know that I never call, hey, silver's definitely going to go to $50, by this particular point in time. I've never been one to try to say that, hey, you should buy silver now, you should sell it here, that type of thing. I always tell people to do their own research, not to take my word for it, look at your own circumstance. And in fact, I've done probably more of the opposite. And then maybe that's one reason why my channel is not growing as much as some of the other. I don't know. But I mean, I just tend to try to be a little bit more balanced in my viewpoint, because I feel like I do have a responsibility, and I try to do my best. Now, obviously, some of the titles if you don't watch the video all the way through to see the nuance of where that title came from, may lead you to believe it if you just read the title. But at the same time, there's only so many characters you can use in the title space, and you got to get viewers in, but you have to back the content up with the title. Like, for instance, you mentioned my thing about the bank that was another bank is about to shut down. Well, if you watch that whole video, you'll see what I was talking about there. It wasn't saying that this means it's over, or that, you should that the banking system is going to collapse, but there's some nuance in there. And that's why some of my videos are 10, 12 minutes long. Much to Terry 79 says my videos are too long because she doesn't watch them all, but that's all right. I forgive her.
Mm-hmm. Right. And, when it comes to stuff like the banking crisis, right, this was at the beginning of the year when I was just kind of frustrated at the beginning of the year. And I was looking at YouTube as just kind of a release to release some frustrations after being canceled. And that was when SVB popped up, Silicon Valley Bank. And I was like, this is a nothing burger. You guys are getting all worked up over nothing. So the bottom line is that YouTube, a lot of this content is generated for clicks and views over actually informing. So, there's no financial crisis. There's no banking crisis. There's no banking banking collapse, SVB was in fact a nothing burger. So people don't like it when you talk about things in this type of way, right? Like right now, the buzz of the last 2 weeks has been the geopolitical uncertainty causing gold to rise.
Right.
Well, the Middle East the certainty is that there's going to be conflict in the Middle East. That's what's certain. It's not uncertainty. It's certain that this is going to happen.
Well, where the uncertainty lies there is that it's not necessarily that there's conflict. Yes, we know that. It's how far will it spread. That's where the geopolitical uncertainty is. It's like I mentioned in my video today. You have the Ukraine situation. Russia has invaded Ukraine. They've been at war for over a year now. That's certainty. Right now, there's not much fear that it's going to spread. But with Israel right now, there's real potential that it could spread and spread quickly, not only to the region, but if Iran gets involved and heavily through Hezbollah or even directly, then we're talking that is massive geopolitical uncertainty, and that's what pushed precious metals up.
Okay, but what about the 6-Day War in the 60s, right? With between Israel and Egypt, right? Isn't that, so this has been going on for 60 years, right? This uncertainty has been going on for 60 years. So who's to say it can't go on for another 60 or 100 years or past all of our lifetimes?
There's always been tension in the Middle East, but
right.
And that's the normalcy. Tension is normal. We have normalized the situation. That's the normal. But what we're seeing now with this attack on Israel and with the potential invasion, the reason why the markets, I do every Sunday night a market watch, and when the attack happened that weekend, gold and silver spiked up. It was all because of this uncertainty, this geopolitical uncertainty of what was going to happen. What was Israel's response going to be? How far will it spread? Now it's baked into the markets that Israel will attack Gaza. They're going to attack, and so that's baked in now. And now the metals are pulling back a little bit. But once they actually do it, then you're going to see psychology. Psychology is a massive driver more than anything else. I talked to a technical analyst on an interview one time that was talking about all of these things. I'm kind of with you on the technical analysis side. But psychology blows all the technical analysis out of the water, completely, and that's what rules the market. And so when you're talking about the influencers for clicks and views, and I'm one of them, right? I mean, I'm trying to grow my channel. You're trying to grow your channel. Nothing wrong with that. But the thing is that you have to look at everything in context and in balance and see where it's going to go, because no one's going to promise you, or no one can promise you what gold and silver are going to do. In fact, my video that I did today before coming live on this interview was about how we get back to $20 silver, how that could actually happen in this environment. And so it's there's a lot of different factors, and I believe in the natural market. The natural market is the biggest mover, and part of that natural market is like a emotional stepchild.
I believe in the natural markets too, but I don't believe that we have natural markets. And I would say that the manipulation has a larger force on the technical analysis and blowing it out of the water than psychology does. And if you follow the technical analysis, well, gold's got to drop down to at least 1820, right? Because between October 6th to October 9th through that weekend, there was like a $20 gap up in price. So according to the chart huggers, they got to fill that gap. So gold's got to drop down to 1820, at least if you follow the technicals, or else you just ignore those technicals and pick and choose what you want. But if it is natural markets, how come is it that we talk about 4 precious metals, right? Generally accepted precious metals: palladium, platinum, gold, and silver. And if you look at the price of all 4, if you look at the price of just platinum, palladium, and gold, I just did this today. The price for average of 1 ounce of precious metal is $1,338. If you average all 4 precious metals and include silver in there, the average for 1 ounce of precious metal is $1,010. But silver's sitting here at $25. There's something serious wrong with silver, and that's because gold and silver are money, period. Silver is the power of the people. It's the real power of the people and the real money of the people, and that's the thing that governments fear more than anything in the world, in my opinion. So,
I've changed my view. I've changed my view somewhat on manipulation. I used to be against. I used to kind of just dismiss manipulation, but obviously I've covered on this channel ad nauseum the J.P. Morgan spoofing, which manipulates the price up and down. I believe there's manipulation up and down in the markets. I've not seen clear evidence. I think there may be some anecdotal evidence of a price suppression with the smackdowns with high frequency trades. but I've not seen enough of that because we've also seen massive spikes in gold and silver too. Silver,
Right.
though, is an industrial metal as well as a monetary metal. And so it's being pushed and pulled. This is why the gold to silver ratio is so wide, because silver is consumed. It's consumed like a commodity. So it's like copper, or lead, zinc, and the like, and the rare earths, and it's going to be driven, I think, just as much by copper and other commodities, which are manipulated by nature as well too. I kind of take the Rick Rule viewpoint on manipulation of silver, but and he doesn't believe in suppression either. But I'm
Right.
open to the possibility that there could be some suppression going on. But to me, that would take a massive cooperation of all the financial institutions out there. And by the way, this is not a hype thing. This is something that's contrarian to the precious metals community. My viewpoint on this is I'm one of the few that has not been fully convinced of silver price suppression.
Well, all you need to do is go to treasury.gov and search up Exchange Stabilization Fund. And there's like 5 paragraphs explaining what the Exchange Stabilization Fund is. And you see one sentence in the first paragraph and one sentence in the last paragraph. And it basically says that the United States Treasury can, manipulate any market at any time for any reason with these couple blanket statement sentences. So I do think that there is systemic manipulation, and it's not just the financial industry, and it's multifaceted in that sense.
That's what whenever Jerome Powell speaks, it's manipulative. You look at the M2 money supply, look at the rate cuts, look at the rate hikes they do. Their job is to manipulate the economy. It's to manipulate the dollar. That's so I'm with you on that completely.
And when it comes to like the $55 to $67 American Seafood, I was one who broke that story first. I put up a article that day when U.S. Mint talked about their price hikes, because you were actually paraphrasing my article. I would challenge you and say that you were reading from my article. That article got like 70,000 views that one day, and it blew up the YouTube community, and everybody started talking about that Silver Eagle because I published the article first after the tweet from the U.S. Mint.
Right. And I think that was the one reason where I didn't credit you on that, and I apologize again for that. I usually like to credit my sources. I very rarely post the link to articles in the description because nobody really cares. But I will mention it so that people can Google it if they ever find it. But anytime somebody authors a piece, I like to at least credit the source from where that comes from, because it's always good to do that.
But my point with that, here's my point with that, Sal. My point with that is that just the words that we use, or we're using all of the words wrong when it comes to gold and silver. All of these terms and all these words that we're using are just wrong. For example, in that article, if you read that article, you can go find it on archive.org still to this day. And I think they scanned it the day after I published it, because archive, it doesn't scan the websites every single day, at least not the what would be considered an alternative media website. But that article is up there, and I got everything right in that article, and people misconstrued what I said, and they said they got everything wrong. And people were even talking about the fact that those are numismatic coins, and I said, no, those weren't numismatic uncirculated American Eagles in 2021, because if you look at the product description, it said mint limit none. Mint or product limit none. So therefore the U.S. Mint itself is misconstruing the word numismatic. So just like we misconstrue the word money, just like we misconstrue the word inflation, all of these terms.
I think maybe if I'm remembering correctly, this is the let me see here. I'm going to just go to the U.S. Mint's website. Let's see here, and go to the uncirculated. Of course, you're not seeing this. I've got you. Let me see if I can shrink you down a little bit. I hope that this doesn't. I hope you're not getting sore by me doing this. Are you?
No.
Are you feeling the pressure?
No, I'm feeling no pressure at all.
All right, very good. I just shrunk him down to the upper right side there. All right, very good. I'll be as gentle as I can. All right, let's see here. Let's go to coins. American Silver Eagle. Where is it here? Silver coins. Okay. I think this is what you were talking about. If my memory serves, we have, if it's still available, the uncirculated coin. Okay, this coin here. In 2021, they had no mintage limits. I don't think there's no mintage limit here. There's no product limit, but this is indeed a numismatic coin.
Yes, but my argument with that is that when you click on the product itself, not the proof. I'm talking just about the circulated.
Which this is what this is. This is the
60s.
uncirculated. Yeah.
Okay, so click on that.
Yeah, we're here. This is
and
it.
then you scroll down and it says, there you go, mintage limit, none. Product limit, none. That was my point with that.
Still a numismatic coin. This is not bullion by any stretch. Do you know why?
Okay.
Because look at this. See that little mint mark right there? That's a W. That W is the West Point Mint. This is strictly for collectors. And that's where I had a problem with one of the other channels that was probably quoting your same article, maybe. But this is definitely not a bullion coin. This is not meant for stacking.
I called that semi-numismatic. In my article.
But the thing is, I don't even like the term semi-numismatic, because is there a semi-pregnant person? You're either pregnant or you're not. This is a numismatic coin.
So how can a coin with no mintage limit be? So that goes back to the fact that we've perverted the word numismatic. We've perverted the word numismatic.
Technically, everything is numismatic. I even did a video called "Everything is Numismatic." Technically, like for instance, the 1996 Silver Eagle that was meant just for stacking. The mintage of those were the lowest of the whole series of bullion coins, and those things are selling for quite a premium these days. So yeah, there's certain things that were not meant to be numismatic that have become numismatic or collectible, and that is really kind of how I define numismatic, as being collectible. This is a collectible coin. When you did your article, it was 67. The mint has raised their prices like crazy, but a stacker would be foolish to buy these things at $67, even now, if they were just a numismatic coin. But that W is what makes it collectible. Now, this has a mintage limit and a product limit of none, and a house order limit of none. But I guarantee you, there's only going to be a couple thousand. I don't know, maybe 100,000. I don't know what. I mean, Silver Wolverine. I don't know if he's here, but he's done a lot of research on the sales of these things. He can tell you. Watch his channel. Subscribe to his channel. He keeps up with this stuff. But I guarantee you, there's not nearly as many of these as they are the ones without the W, which is a stacker one. So that's the difference.
Right. I mean, I get these little nuances, but my point is that there are a lot of nuances where we're using words possibly incorrectly, and I think this is one of those cases. For example, the word inflation. When everybody's talking about gold and all-time record highs, they're not talking about the inflation-adjusted all-time record highs. Right. So if you want to talk about that, you have to go back to 1980. Everybody conveniently omits this fact that you have to adjust for inflation, and gold has not surpassed its high in over 40 years.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. As far as the nominal dollar, you're exactly right. In fact, gold adjusted for inflation would be, $3,000. I actually did a video on that topic because I do like to talk about that. In fact, I try to distinguish when I do my videos between nominal and real price, because that makes a difference.
It does make a difference.
Yep. And that's just the same thing with silver. Silver, people say, well, silver is not an inflation hedge. It's not an inflation hedge. But in reality, it is an inflation hedge. Because when you take a look at the chart, I did a video called 100 Years of Silver's Price Proves Its Worth. And you take take a draw line and draw through that whole chart. And even without taking out the two anomalies, which were 1980 and 2011, silver has actually done very well through that course of that time. But what I tell people is you can take two different dates and prices for silver or gold or any commodity and make that commodity or stock look really, really bad, or you can make it look really, really good. Case in point, March 2020, the day before the crash of silver, silver literally dropped down to half. It was under $12 an ounce. Silver sucked at that point in time, but then it went from under 12 to 24. It doubled in price. So if you can take those 2 points of time from August back to March, and from January down to March, and silver looks great investment even. And I don't like to use the word investment with silver. You know what I mean? So you can make everything look really good, or make everything look really bad.
Okay. I want to push back on that a little bit, because first of all, if we're talking about an inflation hedge, if we're talking about inflation, what is inflation? It's an increase in the money supply. And what is silver? Silver is money. So silver can't be an inflation hedge, because silver is the actual money itself. So that's just
not according to the Federal Reserve, and not according to Ben Bernanke.
Okay, yes, I understand the dollar. Right? I call the dollar unbacked, debt-based, forced currency dependent on exponential, unsustainable growth.
You know what I call it? I got a much more simple name for it. unsound money. Unsound money. That's
Okay,
it.
but let me push back on the inflation hedge thing, because you pulled up 100 years, and I actually did a video called "Silver is not an inflation hedge, nor is gold," like last month, and then I followed it up with a video about silver versus home prices. And what I did was I took the last year that silver was in circulation in our money, 64. We can argue the point about 40% half dollars through 1969, but
Right.
that wasn't the grand point of things. The grand point of things is since 1964, silver has not kept up with a single family median priced home. It has not. And I did the math on this. People can watch that video, but silver has not kept up. So if you want to go back 100 years, I don't know many people that are 100 years old, but if we're talking about from 1964 on, you're talking about, what is that? 59 years, right? So in 59 years, silver has not kept up with the price of a house.
It depends on when well, there's two things. I think it's wrong to, I think it's misguided to compare it to housing prices, because the housing market is very different depending on where you live. If you live in Detroit, I guarantee you it has kept up with inflation. If you live in San Francisco, well, not San Francisco now, maybe, but if you live, there's just depends. Location is everything when it comes to real estate, right?
Right.
But for silver is everywhere, and silver's price is that's basically based off the derivatives, but its value is something else different. So, but if you compare it to gasoline, for instance, where gasoline, it varies too, especially nowadays where it's pushing $7 and almost $7 recently in California, but other places it's $3.50. So it can be double depending on where you're at. But there's not enough range.
It depends on the measure. So this is the point. The point is that in some things silver has kept up, and in other things silver has not. So it goes back to your semi-numismatic point. You're either pregnant or you're not pregnant. Silver has either kept up with inflation or it has not. If you want to throw in other comparisons, we can compare it with healthcare. Has silver kept up with the price of healthcare? What about with the price of college education? I'm paying for college education right now, and I'm not taking out debt to do it. And let me tell you, it is expensive paying for a major public university education right now.
It sure is. That's right. Yeah. Well, but I think a lot of it, though, is when you buy it and how you buy it. This is why I'm a proponent of at least the dollar cost averaging, and I have a new concept called enhanced dollar cost averaging too. Again, I look back to, like I said, you can pick any two dates. If you bought silver when it was before the pandemic, when it was $17 an ounce, and you bought a whole bunch, and then you go to sell it when it went up to $26 an ounce or whatever, or $27 an ounce, man, you did pretty good. So it just depends on how and when you buy it. But I'm a buy and hold kind of guy. I typically don't like to sell. But you can take certain different metrics and you can compare. Some of these markets are hyperinflated too. I mean, the housing market right now, a lot of it's crazy what's going on. And I think that's a signal of what could be coming with the housing market. Look at where interest rates are. It's a lot more expensive, on average nationwide, to buy a house now than it is to rent. It used to be the opposite. You'd be better off just getting a mortgage, build equity, that type of thing. Now equity has a whole new meaning.
It does. And I want to talk about interest rates for one quick second, because I don't even know what the Fed's fund rate is right now. I haven't looked at it all year long.
5 to 5.25.
Okay, to the average person, it doesn't even matter. It really doesn't even matter. If interest rates have gone up, then Economics 101 says the price of the house has to come down because you can't afford the monthly payment if you're talking about a traditional 30-year fixed mortgage. But interest rates are all relative, right? I was looking at USAA performance, right? So USAA is one of the best, supposedly, right? It's the one I use, one of the best banks or credit unions or whatever you want to call it in the United States. And their performance first savings. So back in the 80s, if you worked hard all your life and saved up $1 million and you could draw 5% interest just on a savings account, on a regular savings account, you could be drawing $50,000 a year. Well, now, if you put in $1 million into USAA in a savings account, you're drawing 1.6% interest. And what is $16,000 going to do on a year? It's not really going to do anything. So interest rates are all relative in that sense. And also, I looked at Hyundai just for fun today, and you can get a brand new Hyundai Santa Fe for 0.0% APR for 48 months. So it's all across the board. And focusing on the interest rates really, I don't know, to the individual person, maybe there's some direct systemic macro level things going on, but people get lost in the sauce when they're following the inflation rates and the interest rates and the jobs numbers and all of these numbers. And that's just taking the statistics at face value, when in all actuality, a lot of this data is skewed and a lot of this data is fabricated.
Well,
quite frankly.
interest rates matter because in these three areas, which are the most important and most utilized, number one, housing. That is extremely important if you want to buy a house. And right now, prices are not coming down that much with interest
Mhm.
rates high. That's number one. Number two, auto loans. Now, you just mentioned one there, and there can be some changes, but auto loan interest rates are going up too overall. Number three is this, and that is credit cards. They're crazy with credit card interest rates now, pushing 25% now. So
Mhm.
interest rates do matter, and a lot of people, and in fact, you look at the employment numbers. These employment numbers, and I'll refer to them now. I used to not be so jaded with regards to the three-letter agencies like the Bureau of Labor and Statistics. But what are they doing? I call them the chefs of the Cook the Books Club because,
Mhm.
they're putting on these numbers out, and you got to wonder. Well, it seems like everything is great. The employment numbers are low, but what is it? People can't afford to have just one job, so they have to have part-time jobs. And so just to make ends meet, and so they're paying, and a lot of these people have credit card debt. Credit card debt is through the roof. I think there's over $1 trillion in credit card debt among Americans.
And where's the debt jubilee? Remember all this talk about debt jubilee from a few years ago? What
Right.
happened with Chase Bank in Canada? They shut down their credit card division and forgave everybody's debt. Where's that here if there's a debt crisis, right? And then let me push back one more time on this housing thing, because why would the government let housing fall? When you look at the census.gov median home price data, which I did because I wanted to use median home price because that's what Mike Maloney used to talk about when his 500 ounces of silver will buy a house, or 200 ounces of silver he even qualified it with later. 10 years ago. So when you look at this data in 2008 to 2011, during the housing crisis, home prices only dropped on average 2% nationwide. That's your housing crisis. But more importantly, why would they let housing prices fall? The government and the Fed, by official and unofficial policy, backs the housing market. They support the housing market. They give tax incentives on the housing market. They give all of these things for the housing market. Secondly, your property taxes are based off your home value. So why would they want housing prices to fall, to have all of these, to start bailing out even more municipalities because of plunging home values? And thirdly, who's to say there's not going to be new government programs to come along to help support the price of housing? So all this stuff about housing market and collapse of the auto market, I don't buy it. I don't buy it.
Well, here's something to kind of prove your point too. I just caught this. Son of a silver stacker says builders/owner finance is big right now. 4% to 5% rates, not too bad. Of course, I think for the average mortgage, though, we're talking about is pushing 7%. So I don't know. But by the way, thank you to we have Max M has just gifted 10 Salivate Metal memberships. Thank you, Max. And thanks for the super chats earlier, guys. I appreciate that. Thank you guys for being here. We're talking to Half Dollar here tonight. He is somebody who is an author. He has written in the precious metal space for a big bullion dealer as well, and so he has been in the markets for a long time. And so we're having him on to give some of his viewpoint. He is a contrarian against much of what is being talked about in the precious metal space here on YouTube, as well as some of these other commentators out there. I believe it's good to hear all sides and all viewpoints, especially in the world of precious metals. We should be challenged. We should understand fully what we were getting into when we buy precious metals. I think it's very important to know everything, the good, the bad, and I can't say ugly, because gold and silver I think are pretty darn pretty. Don't you?
Yeah.
I think we agree on that, right? It's pretty.
Oh, definitely. I mean, gold and silver are money, and money is the ultimate human tool. Money is arguably the most important human tool because, a hammer does one thing, a knife does one thing, a saw does one thing, a plow does one thing, but money can make all of those things happen, right? So money is the most important human tool, and all you can ever do with money is you can save it, you can spend it, or you can give it away, and that's what gold and silver are. And I like money just like everybody else. I want to say, and people say I turned on the community or whatever. I didn't turn on the community. In 2020, I thought silver was going to hit its all-time high, and it didn't. I was wrong on my call in 2020. In 2021, when the whole silver squeeze thing popped off, which I said is not going to happen, all we got out of that was $30 and a $10 premium on Eagles. So you got $40 silver. That was it. So everybody turned bullish. So I turned bearish, right? I don't know if I'm a contrarian, but whatever everybody else is doing and whatever everybody else is thinking, I'm doing the opposite just because that's how I am naturally, because I don't want to be like everybody else. I want to be different from everybody else. So I'm not going to get bullish on gold and silver until everybody turns bearish. Now, with this latest geopolitical uncertainty, the bullishness and bearishness, or the greed or the fear, or however you want to call it, it's been a little bit, mostly bullish, some bearish, but I haven't seen an ultimate downright bearish sentiment overall that has just gripped the gold and silver market here and taken it by storm. Have you seen that?
No, I mean, yeah, no, the prices have not. I mean, the thing is with gold, as far as its nominal dollars, it is getting closer to $2,000 again, and who knows? I think we're going to see $2,100 gold next year, but I don't know. I mean, it's no one really knows exactly where the metals are going to go, and I think you're right. I mean, it's good to kind of push back a little bit, and I tend to do it, but not necessarily do it to be contrarian just to be a contrarian. I try to. When I do my commentary, I do it to make myself think, to talk it through with myself, but also to get other people to think about all sides. In other words, I don't discount some of what is said in the community. I take it seriously, and I don't think the motives of many of my fellow channels, especially the ones that are bigger than mine, I don't think their motives are bad. I don't think they're trying to mislead the community. I don't feel I'm trying to mislead the community, but I don't think they are either. I really don't.
Well, I think there's a lot of conflict of interest out there, right? Because I think that if you look at the markets as a casino, right, you lose your money mathematically in the casino, or like the lottery, for example. But if it's a rigged casino, you're guaranteed to lose. So I don't look at the financial markets as free and fair markets. I looked at them as a rigged casino, and that's a setup for failure. So a lot of these channels that have, talk about trading, or talk about the shares, or buying call options on triple levered ETFs, or whatever it is that they're doing. Well, if you're doing that, then you are gambling in the rigged casino. What I say is you're spoon feeding the beast. If you don't like the way things have been or things are in the gold and silver markets, then you have to starve the beast. And starving the beast means not gambling in the rigged casino. And people can't talk about it in that sense because of the inherent conflicts of interest. So, these are some of the problems that I have. And these are some of the reasons why people won't talk to me, because I'm going to come on and I'm going to say, well, if you want things to change, you can't enable the system as it is.
Oops, crap. I don't know what happened. We just lost him. Let me see if maybe I can get him back here. Just a second here. Are you back with me?
I think I'm here. Can you hear me?
Okay, yeah. I don't know what happened. Sorry about that. Repeat what you just said. It literally just stopped for some reason, but we still got you. Go ahead.
No, well, I mean, it's just if you're trading in the markets, you're enabling the manipulation. So if you want to end the manipulation, you can't trade in the markets. The problem is that people are selfish, and I have no problem with that. If you want to gamble in the rigged casino, that's fine, right? There are lots of different forms of addiction, and gambling is one addiction. So the markets are never going to end because people are never going to stop trading in these financial markets as they are today. This is one of the reasons why things don't ever change especially in the silver market, right? Especially in the silver market, sitting here under $25 in October of 2023. So these are issues that I bring that they just can't talk about, because that other channels can't talk about, because it's the elephant in the room. It really is.
Well, I'm willing to ride the elephant, because I talk about some of this stuff too. I look at it this way. The anything that you put your money in, whether it be physical silver, which has a premium much greater than gold by percentage, or mining stocks or ETFs, they all have their varying levels of risk. Mining stocks, especially exploration mining stocks, which I have profiled on this channel many times, some of these mining stocks, from uranium mining stocks to gold and silver exploration, which is very risky. It's a very high risk, high reward situation. And but that's one thing we talk about. Anytime you get into the precious metal space, it is very vast and expansive. But like you said, the mining exploration stocks is a gamble. It is like going into a casino. Are you willing to do that? Are you willing to take that risk? Or do you just stick with the physical? And the physical has risks too. And by the way, even if you buy silver at spot price, you're still taking a risk, right? Because the spot price could fall dramatically, or it could rise dramatically. And it's all the price that's most important is the price you're going to get when you go to sell your silver.
Yes, you are. And if you look at gold and silver as money, then it really all comes down to the exchange rate. Are you getting a good exchange rate or are you not getting a good exchange rate? Now, behind me, this clutter and this mess that you can see is my little eBay operation. Now, I'm not very active anymore. I was actually buying a bunch of computer stuff in 2016, 2017, 2018 for some weird reason, and I ended up riding that wave to no end with during the whole microchip shortage thing. But
Right.
that's not the point. The point is you brought up Rick Rule, and I'm going to make one specific point specifically, and I would disagree with the whole exploration and the juniors and the explorers and all this and all that. So I think there's a lot of pump and dumps. There's a lot of like they're pushing this stuff and they're getting on these channels for clicks and views, and then they've got warrants anyway. So if the share price goes to a certain level, then they can execute their warrant and they can get a whole bunch of shares. And
Then why would
all
they
of
pay?
these
Why
things,
would they
right?
pay us so much money to promote these then? If that's the case, they're paying us pretty good to do these to do these profiles. You understand that, right?
Yeah, I understand that there are paid interviews and there are non-paid interviews, and there are interviews that are presented as just casual interviews, and then there are interviews that are presented that are paid that are not presented that way. But well, if you get to exercise a warrant, and you've got a, I think when I was writing about this a lot, I think the name was Abra Silver was one of them, and it was like a company that like changed their names like 3 different times, and like Eric Sprott's backing them. Oh, he can't do no wrong. He's everybody's favorite gold and silver billionaire,
Right.
billionaire. And no, but if you read all of these terms, if that share price would have hit 40 cents, he could have exercised all these warrants that he had to get all of these shares, free money, basically. So everybody is incentivized because people want to see these people talk. They want to see Eric Sprott. They want to see Rick Rule. They want to see all these people. Let me just make one point, really quick point about Rick Rule, because one thing that he has said repeatedly over the years publicly is, how can there be systemic manipulation because the United States Postal Service can't even deliver the mail? Have you ever heard him say that, Sal?
Oh, yes, I have, and I actually
Okay.
agree with that point. Yeah.
Okay. Now, I personally, you can look at my eBay store, and I personally have mailed over 1,100 packages all through the United States Postal Service, including 2020 and all of the delays that were associated with that. And not once has the United States Post Office ever lost a single package ever. So that is a complete myth at
Well,
best, and the United States
I
Postal Service can, in fact, deliver the mail. They've
I
done it over
think
1,100 times for me.
I think it's sort of a tongue in cheek. Basically, he's talking about the government. It's kind of like a government can't really hide a conspiracy. The government in general, and the post office has had its issues. You've got an anecdotal example where it's worked great for you, but
It's
I
worked
can.
flawlessly.
Yeah, other people have. I've heard horror stories about the postal service myself. And again, it's not to say that there's bad postal workers out there, but the system is just bureaucracy. Bureaucracy is the enemy of essentially manipulation to some extent. And basically, what his point was is you take all these financial institutions, all these big banks that have a lot of self-interest. They have interest for themselves. Even the precious metals manipulators that I've profiled, and I've talked about these stories on my channel, these guys were selfish. There wasn't above anything greater than themselves to push the price of silver down. No, it was about them profiting from spoofs, from making trades to where they can profit. It doesn't matter if the price goes up or the price goes down. It's as long as they can profit from it. There
Right.
was no grand scheme, a grand conspiracy to keep the price of silver down. I think that's the difference. And again, that is a very unpopular opinion.
I would disagree with that. I would disagree with that because I would say that there is, in fact, a conspiracy to keep the price of silver down. And although I would say that it's not possible to manipulate gold and silver for that matter, and really most markets for that matter, in either direction, either way, at any time. And I've seen this firsthand, right? I've seen this firsthand through my experiences in the United States military and being deployed in combat in Iraq, right?
Which, by the way, thank you. And I did forgot to mention that because I did remember hearing that on your channel. I cannot thank you enough for your service and doing that. Thank you.
Well, thank you. But my point is, I appreciate that, Sal. But my point is, war is racket, right? War is racket. And interesting, we just got $100 billion request, right? To
send to
for
Ukraine,
defense spending.
Right.
But the point is that I have seen statistics skewed, I have seen fabrications, and I have seen systemic level stuff where the individual person, like in the case of the markets, right? Let's bring it back to the markets. In the case of the markets, the individual spoofer might not know exactly that his role is something higher or lower than it actually is, but it's varying levels and it's multifaceted on the approach towards the manipulation is my point there, Sal.
Yeah, and I'm sure there is a lot of complexity there. And like I said, I'm open to potential that there may be some price suppression. In fact, the one who convinced me is one of my viewers here, JM Unleashed, and that's the thing I love about my viewers is there's a lot of knowledge there, and I've been challenged on a lot of things, and I like to learn from my viewers. It's amazing. I think as long as we as content creators, and you're part of that now, are flexible, and I think really the overall attitude I believe we should have is to maybe not so much attack individuals, but maybe just go after the ideas that maybe are being perpetrated. And again, you do you as far as what you think is right for you, because you're a smart guy, and I want to learn from you. I've learned some stuff from watching some of your content, and I think that's what makes the world go round. I love the varying different ideas. I like to be challenged in my thinking, and this is one reason why I wanted to have you on and expose you to my audience, because I know you may disagree, but I really don't have an agenda. And I would hope that me having you here would prove that, because if you can't be open to other ideas, you'll never be canceled here, as long as you're respectful. And you have been, and by the way, I didn't take your criticism of me really that personally. Believe you me, I've been attacked pretty hard, and I kind of laughed at it. In fact, I will say this, that I'm hoping maybe you can do this, for us here tonight, but I love your facial expressions, and I love the Cookie Monster voice too. So maybe we can get you to do some of that. Yeah.
Oh, I don't even know if I can. So
well, and by the way, too, you're very important, because I have turned down 3 scam calls in the midst of this interview. I always take scam calls. I know you've probably never been on my live streams, but we like to have fun with scammers when they call, and we have a good time. So if one calls, if we can have fun with them together if you want.
Yeah, absolutely. And I appreciate that, Sal. And at the beginning of the video, I was watching a little bit of the video when you started it live, and you were like, I don't know where my name is. I actually did take your name off that list because you are opening yourself up to dialogue.
Okay.
And that is where I draw the line with silver advocacy, right? I go in like Chris Marcus won't have me on. I know Chris, he knows me, he knows what I say, right? Other people won't have me on. Craig Hemke, from TF Metals Report, he won't talk to me. Steve San Angelo, he won't talk to me. I don't know if you know these names or not, but they know
I've heard
me,
of them.
right?
Yeah,
they know me. So this is why I don't consider it attacking. I consider it exposing, because everybody wants to avoid me and they want to ignore me. But sooner or later, if enough people can hear what it is that I have to say, and I can challenge their thinking on these things, then they won't be able to ignore me forever. And, when you start out being canceled as I have, well, you got to come out swinging in that sense. You got to come out slightly aggressive.
I understand. I think there's a tack that you can do it. And again, I know that sometimes if I have a problem with what another channel does, in fact, one of them, and I'm not going to mention their name here, but you don't necessarily have to mention the channel. Just bring the idea. I think the idea, and you're very articulate, and you're entertaining, and you're energetic, and I love that. And I think that is what that personality, I think, will serve you better. I think just with the ideas, because you have some good ideas. Some of them I disagree with them, others I do agree with, but that's what makes it. And your channel's growing, and you've got the experience, you've got the background and experience, and that's one of the reasons why I want to have you on. Now, I will say this: I've been challenged by another member of the community. Well, hey, you have this guy on, but you won't have me on. Well, I'll have anybody on, but the thing is I pride myself, and again, I'm not a braggadocious type person, but I pride myself in supporting the community and other content creators, small channels, even big channels, because I want to promote the idea of free expression of ideas, even if I disagree with them. And I also want to promote the idea of precious metals as far as and in education and entertainment. That's what it's about.
Right. And that's what I'm trying to do. That's what I'm trying to do here. So
Cool.
this is my approach. And I'm trying to cast a broad net, right? I'm trying to cast a broad net to bring in more people, not just gold and silver related, but also just the markets and the economy in general, trying to teach people about the markets and the economy in general. And, that's because that's the issue, right? Like with all of the noise on YouTube, how do you get above the noise and get your voice heard when you have a different message to bring? But if you're got less than 100 people on your channel and nobody's even seeing it, and you're not on any other social media and you work a full-time job and you have a family, then how are you going to accomplish that?
Well, I tell you what, if one of my moderators can post a link to Not a Gold Bug's channel, we'll pin it here. If you guys can check him out, give him a chance. And again, I don't want to tell you how to run your channel, but I think you might be better served by maybe not necessarily calling out the channels or whatever. I would just bring your ideas, and your viewpoints. And I do think that because, there's ways to ruffle feathers and be true to yourself without necessarily angering a bunch of people. You know what I mean?
I do know what you mean. And another one of the issues is when you talk about certain topics, there's been so much misinformation throughout the years that it is like people were immediately turned off because they don't understand how it is that you're talking about these things. For example, like the gold confiscation. Everybody talks about gold confiscation in 1933. There wasn't a gold confiscation in 1933. That was not confiscation. That is not how it's talked about.
Right.
In
They didn't
any
go
of
to
the
door to
official
door. They
narrative.
didn't go to door to door saying, "Hey,
No.
give me your gold and silver."
No,
Yeah, right.
They didn't. So just because when I approach these things, I approach them from a different point of view, and this is off turning immediately from the beginning because everybody's convinced and everybody's trained to think gold confiscation 1933, Executive Order 6102, gold confiscation, gold confiscation, gold confiscation, and then they run with that. So then, who's this nut job talking about there was never any gold confiscation, right? So,
and I think a lot of it too is semantics because I've had the argument with several people say, well, a $10,000 fine if you don't turn in your gold sounds like confiscation to me, and if you don't do it, they're going to come to your home and find out and take a gold anyway and fine you. It's like so it's semantics is a part of that too. So I typically sometimes don't get too much involved in that argument too much, but I do get what you're saying. We have to be I believe that things can be hyped up too much, and I probably have fallen for some of that as well. And when some of these things happen with the one thing about the banking crisis, I will say, when these banks started falling, Silicon Valley Bank, that was a small bank, was a very isolated incident. But then these other banks started falling. And then look back to 2007, 2008. It was 6, 7, 8 months before the next bank fell. And then look what happened. And we could be happening that again. I did a video just recently about how 54 banks fell in 1 week. That's right, 1 week. Now, they weren't individual banks, they were branches, and likely they were probably done for economic reasons because people weren't using them, were in lower income areas. But that's a multiple different things that tells us we can deduce from why that's occurred. All of them, every single one of those paths you take leads to why it's good to have gold and silver. Every single one. There's a lesson to be learned there. No matter whether it means that the economy is going to crash tomorrow or not, that's a big deal when 54 banks close in 1 week across a couple of states.
Yeah. Of course, it can all be backstopped by the Fed either way, overtly or covertly. So, I think my point of view would be that if the powers that be, call that what you will, and I don't think that the Fed is independent in that sense, right? You've got Janet Yellen, who was Fed chair, who turned, professional circuit speaker, who turned, U.S. Treasury Secretary, right? So it's not independent in that sense. It's one and the same. But my point there is, if the powers that be, call it what you will, want a banking crisis, we'll get a banking crisis. If they want some other crisis, we'll get some other crisis. Why? Because in my opinion, the US dollar has already hyperinflated. There's a couple of metrics I can use to talk about why. One of them is the interest rates, right? And that's that other point really quick about the housing rates, 11% back in the 70s and 80s for a house. So if average interest rates right now on a mortgage are 7%, well, that's still 5 percentage points less than what it has been in the past. But getting back to the other point, it's like in a video I talked about 31 flavors of Baskin Robbins. Well, it's kind of like 31 flavors of whatever money printing you want. Right now, it seems like there's $100 billion for defense spending, right? That's inflationary. So the banking crisis, well, if they want to print money for a banking crisis, they'll print money for a banking crisis, right? Because the dollar has already hyperinflated in that sense.
Look in September in 2019, they did what's called repurchase agreements, and that was, to the tune of $970 billion, and not many people were talking about that. I did on my channel, but there's a lot of different things going on that are pretty scary. they're certainly out there. But anyways,
Mhm.
well, very good. Well, thank you. This has been a good I mean, do you think this has been a fair discussion? Do you think you've gotten your
Yeah, I think it's been a fair discussion. I think it's been good. We had no script, we had no plan, we had
right,
no anything.
right?
So, I mean, I just think this is natural and I think this is what is needed. And I do appreciate you for having me on because other people won't. Other people won't want to hear what I have to say and they won't want to accept the challenge in that sense because, if you're getting backed by mining companies or if you're trading in the markets, well, you don't want to hear the message that if you want to end the manipulation, you can't trade in the markets, right? And that's one of the messages that I bring. So the concept that I call it is starving the beast, right? So you can't fight the beast. You can't force a silver squeeze, right? Because the beast always wins. I did a video recently on sea turtles, which talks about this whole concept. But so yes, I do think that you are a cut above because you are actually welcoming dialogue. And that is the most critical thing when it comes to gold and silver advocacy is the dialogue open or is the dialogue not open? Because dialogue means there will be dialogue that's uncomfortable and there's dialogue that's challenging and there's going to be dialogue that people are not going to want to agree with.
Right. And I would say you've been very respectful to me, and I appreciate that. And I hope I have been to you.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
and my guess is if your approach maybe shifted a little bit towards just the war of ideas, and maybe not necessarily attacking individuals, maybe other channels would have you on as well. Because I do think you have an impressive resume. I think that your experience in the space is noteworthy, and I saw it. I looked past the other stuff and watched enough of your content. So thank you so much. I appreciate you being here, and this has been good. And hopefully my viewers can understand why I had him. I did get some pushback. Said, why are you having him on here? He's just but again, I want to be open-minded, and I want to look at all sides because I think that if you are comfortable in your own skin, then you should be able to accept the challenge and be able to take on the ideas. And I think we've had a good, productive discussion here. We may not have changed each other's minds a whole lot, but I think we've gained some perspective, and I think that's
right.
important.
Yeah, that's right. We have gained some perspective and the suggestions will be taken into consideration. Absolutely. Maybe push less and try and inform more. Maybe all of these things I will be taken into consideration because yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I agree with that. And I do appreciate you having me on to talk about this in front of a larger channel that doesn't hear these types of conversations, right? This type of conversation is in fact sheltered on YouTube for the most part. So thank you very much, Sal, for allowing me the opportunity to come on.
And I'll quote you, and we're not going to leave quite yet, but I'll quote you. Thank you for your time. That's how he ends his videos, by the way. It's pretty cool. Thank you for your time. I love that.
Yeah. And I did grow the YouTube channel from 20,000 to like 35,000 subscribers over those 5 years. And that YouTube channel, the Silver Doctor's YouTube channel, that was during all of the great YouTube purges, right? Like right. I know that channel SGT Report that got purged in 2020. I've been on his channel before.
Right.
And we somehow survived all of those YouTube purges and survived all of that stuff. And I know what it's been like being in the alternative media and all of the attacks that the alternative media has had over the last 5 years. Because I had to deal with all of it. And I mean, it's real. So that's why there's a lot of this self-censorship. That's why there's a lot of people won't touch certain topics. And the end result is to help people learn about gold and silver because gold and silver are money. And that is what is critical, especially in the times that we're living, right?
That's
in the times that we're living. If inflation, if interest rates, if housing, all of these things come back to money, right? And this is what is most critical for people. But just the information and the sharing of ideas is totally lacking.
Yep. It's always good to have the free flow of ideas out there. Well, cool. Well, thank you, sir. I very much appreciate you coming on. And I want to extend a multitude of gratitude to everybody else for being here tonight. We're going to be back on tomorrow night. I hope everybody that's here now will come back on tomorrow night for our normal not market watch, but live stream where we answer comments. I do have coffee here, but I've been polite with Paul. I've not slurped in his presence.
I've been drinking my iced tea here, so
there you go. Yes, indeed. So we'll be back on tomorrow night. I hope you'll join me there for our normally scheduled broadcast. We'll take scammers and do the regular thing. But thank you again, sir. I appreciate you being here. And thanks to all of you. I'm going to leave you all with this piece of advice. In fact, this is a piece of advice that Paul may not have heard before, and that is this: to keep your feet on the stars and keep